Most people decide how they feel about you within the first 7 seconds of a conversation, which is probably why starting one feels so terrifying. Like, have you ever rehearsed a conversation in your head, and then the moment you actually start talking, everything comes out weird? Suddenly you become hyper-aware of every word, every pause, every facial expression, and now the conversation feels awkward before it's even started. But what if I told you the awkwardness usually isn't coming from what you say, it's coming from what's happening in your head while you're saying it? Hi honeys, welcome back to
Honey.
In this video, we're breaking down why conversations feel awkward and how to make them feel natural. Let's start at the root of the problem. When you're about to approach someone, or even when you're responding to someone new in a group, your brain runs a very quick, very unconscious threat assessment. The amygdala, which is the part of your brain that handles fear and survival responses, actually activates in social situations that feel uncertain or risky. It's the same system that would fire if you heard a loud noise in a dark alley. Now, why would talking to a stranger trigger something like that? Because for most of human history, social rejection wasn't just embarrassing. It was actually dangerous. Being cast out from your group, your tribe, your community, meant you were on your own. And being on your own, thousands of years ago, meant you probably weren't going to make it very long. So the brain learned to treat social risk very seriously. It learned to be cautious. The problem is we're not in tribes anymore. We're in coffee shops, office lobbies, and parties. But the brain didn't get the memo. It still runs the same old program. This person might reject you. Rejection is dangerous. And what that feels like from the inside is your mind going blank. Words disappearing. An almost physical resistance to opening your mouth. Some people describe it as a wall. Some people just say they freeze, and they don't know why, because they're not even scared. They just can't move. That's not a personality flaw. That's just your ancient brain doing its ancient job in a world it wasn't quite built for. And here's why that matters, because if you've ever thought I'm just bad at this, or it comes naturally to other people, not me, that story isn't true. You're not bad at conversation. You're just dealing with the same wiring everyone else is dealing with. The people who look smooth and easy at this, they've either rewired the response through a lot of practice, or they've found a way to work with it instead of getting paralyzed by it. That's the goal here. Now, beyond the base-level brain stuff, there are a few specific patterns that make starting conversations feel way harder than they need to be. And most of us are doing at least two of these without realizing it. The first one is that you're thinking about yourself too much. Which sounds like a weird thing to say, because aren't you supposed to think about what you're saying? But here's what I mean. When you walk towards someone and your brain is running that loop of, how do I sound? What do I look like? Are they judging me? Am I being weird? All of that mental energy is pointed inward. And conversation is inherently outward. It's about the other person. So what ends up happening is you're so busy monitoring yourself that you don't actually see the person in front of you. You're not curious about them. You're not paying attention to the signals they're giving off. You're just internally narrating your own performance. And conversations that feel like performances, even just on one side, feel stiff, awkward, transactional. The energy is off and people can feel it even if they can't name it. The second pattern is waiting for the perfect thing to say. And this one is so common it's almost universal. We have this idea, usually absorbed from movies or TV or that one charismatic person we've always admired, that the ideal opener is something clever and smooth and memorable. Something that makes the other person immediately think, wow, this person is interesting. So we wait for that line. We run through options, we filter them, we reject them. And while all that's happening, the moment passes. Or we say nothing and then feel worse about ourselves. Or we finally say something, but by then it's been so long it's even weirder. There is no perfect opener. There is no line that is so good it bypasses the awkwardness of meeting someone new. The best openers in real life are simple, warm, situationally aware, and delivered like you actually mean them. That's it. There's no secret formula beyond that. The third pattern is treating the whole thing like an audition. Like you need to prove something in these first 30 seconds. Like your goal is to be impressive, or interesting, or funny, or cool. And the reason this is so destructive is because it puts all the pressure on output, on what you're producing, instead of on connection, which is what conversation is actually for. When you're auditioning, you're not listening. You're just waiting for your next line. And people feel that too. They can tell when someone is talking at them versus talking with them. One feels like being an audience. The other feels like being a person. You need to get out of your head, lower the bar for your opener, and shift your goal from impressing to genuinely connecting, which is exactly what the framework is designed to help you do. Alright, so let's talk about the actual fix. I call this the OAR framework. Observe, ask, relate. And I like the acronym because conversation really is like rowing. You put in effort, you get momentum, and once you're moving it gets a lot easier. But you have to start. Observe. The first step is just to look around and notice something real in your shared environment. Now, the reason I emphasize real is because there's a difference between a genuine observation and a canned opener. People can feel the difference. A genuine observation comes from you actually paying attention to the setting, to something they're wearing or doing, to something funny or weird or interesting about the situation you're both in. You're at a coffee shop and the person next to you just got an enormous drink. That's something. You're at a work event and the snack table is weirdly elaborate. That's something. You're in a class and the instructor just said something everyone found confusing. That's something. Shared context is everywhere. Most of us just walk past it because we're too in our heads to notice. The observation does two things simultaneously. It gives you something natural and specific to open with, something that isn't generic, something that couldn't have been scripted, and it signals to the other person that you're actually present, that you're paying attention to the same world they're in. And that little signal is more powerful than most people realize. It's the difference between nice to meet you, what do you do, which goes nowhere, and okay, I have to ask, how are you planning to finish that entire thing, which goes somewhere real? Ask. After the observation, you follow it with a question. And again, not a deep question, not a probing question. Just something that genuinely invites them to respond. The question is, what turns your observation from a statement into a conversation? Without it, you're just narrating. With it, you're passing the ball. And here's something worth knowing about questions. People actually like answering them. Not interrogation-style questions, but real ones that come from genuine curiosity. There's research on this. When someone asks us a question and actually listens to the answer, it activates the same part of the brain as rewards. It feels good to be asked about. So asking isn't just a conversation technique, it's actually a gift to the other person if you do it right. The key qualifier there is genuine curiosity. Ask questions you actually want to know the answer to. Is that good? I've never tried it. How long have you been coming here? Do you know anyone else here or are you in the same boat as me? That last one, by the way, is underrated. Acknowledging that you're a bit out of your element is disarming in the best way. It's honest. It makes the other person feel less alone too. Relate. This is the step most people skip, and it's the most important one for making the conversation actually feel like a conversation and not just an exchange. After they respond to your question, you connect something back. A small personal story or a shared feeling. Something that shows you didn't just hear their words, but you actually received them, and it reminded you of something real. This is where the click happens. This is when it shifts from two people politely interacting to two people actually talking. Relating isn't about making it about you. It's about creating a thread between your experience and theirs. That thread is the beginning of connection. And connection, even in small doses, is what people are actually looking for when they talk to someone new. 3 steps that together create a natural, flowing opening that doesn't feel scripted because it's built on actual reality. Now, there's something I haven't mentioned yet that sits underneath all of this, and it's the layer that makes or breaks everything else, and that's your body language. Because you can have the perfect observation, the most genuine question, but if your body is doing something that reads as closed off or nervous or like you're bracing for impact, the other person's brain picks that up before your words even land. We are wired to read physical signals faster than we process language. It happens below conscious thought. So what does closed off look like? Crossed arms, body angled away, eyes darting, that slightly hunched posture people get when they're in self-protection mode. None of these are conscious choices. They're the body's way of trying to make itself smaller in uncertain situations. Totally understandable. But they communicate the opposite of approachability. Open body language is almost comically simple. It's just the absence of those things. Shoulders relaxed. Body angled toward the person. Eye contact that's comfortable, not intense. And the big one, Genuine smile. Here's a weird trick that actually works. Before you go into a social situation where you know you'll have to talk to people, take 30 seconds and think about something or someone that genuinely makes you happy. Your dog, or a funny thing that happened, or a person you love. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between a real warm feeling and a recalled one, so you carry that warmth into the room with you. And it shows. People move toward warmth. The other thing worth mentioning is pacing. When people are nervous, they speed up. Speech gets faster. Movements get a bit jittery. Everything has this slightly frantic energy. Slowing down, even just slightly, signals confidence, even if you don't fully feel it. And here's the thing about signals. Sometimes you can fake the signal long enough that your brain catches up. That's not manipulation. That's just how the nervous system works. Act calm. The calm feeling follows. And before you go, I just want you to remember that nobody has this perfectly figured out. The most socially confident people you know are just people who got comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. That's the whole secret. So just go be yourself. The unpolished, sometimes awkward, figuring it out version of you. Because that's the version people actually connect with anyway. And I've turned this into a full series on social skills, breaking down everything that actually matters. So whenever you're ready, the next one's right there waiting for you.